The Haunting of Hollow Creek. Creepy true story of a haunted town. Hollow Creek is a small town hidden in the Appalachian Mountains, known for its dark history and the strange tales that surround it. Although the scenery is beautiful, with dense pine forests and a clear flowing river, the place harbors something much darker. Locals believe that something haunts Hollow Creek. Some say it is the spirits of miners who perished in an explosion in the 1800s, while others swear that the land has been cursed since the first indigenous tribe that lived there was wiped out by colonial settlers. One thing is certain, everyone who has ever lived there has their own terrifying story. David Carter, an investigative journalist from New York, arrived in Hollow Creek after receiving reports of paranormal activity in the town. Many people had mysteriously disappeared, strange noises echoed through the night, and several abandoned houses showed signs of life even though no one lived there. At the only inn in town, the owner, an elderly woman named Martha, warned David not to explore too far after sunset. "Those who seek answers in Hollow Creek rarely return safely," she said with a trembling voice. David visited the old library and found ancient archives about Hollow Creek. He discovered the story of the Dalton family, who mysteriously vanished in 1923. Every member of the family was found dead with expressions of sheer terror on their faces, but no signs of violence. Since then, their house had become the epicenter of countless strange occurrences. The last living eyewitness, Jacob Holloway, a 90-year-old man, warned David not to approach the Dalton house. "They are still there, but they are no longer human," he whispered. David decided to visit the Dalton house before nightfall. As he stepped into the yard, an unnatural chill swept over him, despite the warm evening air. He heard whispering voices in his ears, yet there was no one around. That night at the inn, David heard footsteps in the corridor, even though he knew no other guests were staying there. When he opened his door, the hallway was empty. But at the far end, a dark figure stood still, watching him. David sought more information about the river running through the town, which, according to legend, was the site where several children had drowned, their bodies never recovered. Locals believed the river's waters were not only cold but also alive. Some who had ventured close at night claimed to have seen the shadowy figures of children standing at the water's edge, calling to them in hushed voices. David decided to visit the river at night. As he neared the banks, he felt small hands grasping his ankle from beneath the water. Hollow Creek residents spoke of eerie entities called the Hollow Men, faceless dark figures that roamed the town's streets at night. They were said to be the spirits of those who had vanished in Hollow Creek, returning to claim new victims. David set up cameras around town to capture evidence of these beings. The next morning, when he reviewed the footage, he was horrified. A shadowy figure had walked right outside his inn, stopped in front of his window, and then disappeared. Feeling there was a connection between all the events and the Dalton house, David returned. This time, he decided to enter. As he stepped inside, the air felt heavy and suffocating. The portraits on the walls seemed to follow his every move. In the living room, he found an old diary belonging to one of the Dalton children. The final entry read, "They come every night. They want us to leave. But we cannot go." Just as he finished reading, footsteps echoed from the upper floor. David climbed the stairs, his breath heavy. At the end of the hallway, a bedroom door was slightly ajar, and a shadow moved inside. He turned on his flashlight and stepped in, only to find a large mirror reflecting a dark silhouette that was not his own. The shadow in the mirror began to move on its own, approaching him, while David remained frozen in fear. The room's temperature plummeted. In his panic, he dropped the flashlight, and the mirror shattered, emitting a deafening scream. David bolted out of the Dalton house and back to the inn, only to find Martha waiting on the porch. "You saw them, didn't you?" she asked. David nodded, still gasping for breath. Martha handed him an old envelope. "This is my father's final note. He was also a journalist, like you. He tried to uncover the truth about Hollow Creek, and he never returned." David opened the envelope and found notes eerily similar to his own experiences. Without hesitation, David packed his belongings and left Hollow Creek at dawn. As he glanced in the rearview mirror, he saw a shadowy figure standing at the roadside, watching him drive away. David published his report on Hollow Creek, but many dismissed it as fiction. Nevertheless, some paranormal investigators were intrigued and ventured there. Not all of them returned, and Hollow Creek remains, deep in the mountains, waiting for those brave enough to seek the truth. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss more terrifying stories. See you in the next video.